Sports. What's the big deal? Why is it such a big thing? Why are so many people as deeply invested in sports as they are? Is it because of the money you can win in betting? Is it because of the thrill of watching the best athletes in the world? Is it because of time spent with friends and family? There are many different answers to this question, and through the duration of my speech, I'm hoping to give you my answer to it. So, does anyone else have any ideas? Why are people so invested in sports? I want you guys to think about that question throughout my speech. This past weekend, the sports world was hit hard. This past Sunday was a hard day for many people in the sports business. Sunday started off with the news that Jose Fernandez, a pitcher for the Miami Marlins, passed away in a boating accident early Sunday morning. His future in baseball was as bright as could be. The 24-year-old pitcher was one of the best strikeout pitchers in the game throughout his young career, as he struck out over 31% of the batters he faced throughout his 4 seasons in the league. Jose had one of the best personalities in sports, as anytime the camera was on his face, you could see his giant smile, and it was so infectious. Jose was loved by so many people, and that shone through in abundance, as many people gave condolences to his family and the Marlins organization on Twitter after the news broke out of his death. This young man will be truly missed by so many people. And yesterday, the Marlins played their first game since his death, and it was supposed to be his start. So it was very emotional for the team, as you can imagine. The way they chose to honor him was truly inspiring. The evening started with a somber rendition of "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," played on the trumpet, and just you could see people, and they were just so moved by it. That followed up by Deke Gordon, who was the leadoff man for the Marlins that evening, and he hit a leadoff home run, and as he crossed the plate, he just broke down, and he almost couldn't move. It was a very emotional time for the Marlins and the organization. And the sad news doesn't end there. One of the best golfers of all time passed away Sunday afternoon. News broke late afternoon that Arnold Palmer passed away at the age of 87. Palmer was one of the best to ever play, and was an amazing pioneer for the sport of golf. Palmer was such an exciting golfer to watch that he had his own fan base called Arnie's Army. He was one of the first golfers to have a true following of every fans at every event he went to. Palmer really took it to heart and tried his best to always interact with the fans, and you could tell he truly loved every moment he was out on the golf course. But not everything in sports business is sad. So I want to give you a couple of positive stories that show the power of sports. I'm going to start with the Boston Bombings. Now, most of us remember the events that took place on April 15th, 2013. That day was, of course, the day that hit the city of Boston hard with the Boston Bombings taking place at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. This day was a dark day for the city of Boston and shook the people of the city like we could never imagine. It wasn't until the first few sporting events in the city that people finally began to feel whole again and started to heal after the bombings. One of the first sporting events to be held was a game between the Boston Bruins and the Buffalo Sabres. When Rene Rancourt, the singer of the national anthem for the Bruins, started singing the anthem and the whole arena joined in, it gave people the sense of strength that was needed at that time. It gave people the sense of safety and security that had been lost in the bombings. And then there was David Ortiz of the Boston Red Sox, who gave one of the most emotional speeches ever before the Red Sox played the Kansas City Royals on April 21st, in the first game back at Fenway since the bombings. Ortiz said in part of his speech that Boston is their city and no one can take that away from them. Ortiz's speech helped start the healing process that was so desperately needed at that time. The city of Boston was lacking normalcy after the bombings, and these two sporting events just days after were how the city was going to return to their normal everyday lives. One final positive story I would like to leave you with is that of Vin Scully. Vin Scully was a broadcaster in the MLB for 67 amazing seasons. Vin Scully has done it all in his illustrious broadcasting career. He's called 3 perfect games, 21 no-hitters, and 28 World Series finals. The way Vin Scully would call baseball games is far different than any other commentator in any other sport. Vin loved to take his listeners down memory lane with tons of different stories throughout his broadcast. His humble personality shone through in his last home game as the broadcaster, as he thanked all of the members who listened to him through his years behind the mic. Instead of taking all the praise from the fans, he He threw it back at the crowd. Vin Scully will go down as one of the best to ever call the game of baseball, and judging by the send-off of the packed Dodger Stadium gave him, he will go down as the most loved. So, in response to the question, why are so many as deeply invested in the sports world as they are? To me, the answer is a simple one. To me, people are so into sports because it can bring people together as almost nothing else can. It gives so many of us a common ground that we can bond over and forget about what's happening in the real world for a little bit. The world of sports is as tight-knit of a community as possible, and that shone through this past weekend, and also in the past as we witnessed both the good and the bad of what sports can bring. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this speech.
Wow. That's hard, bro.
Good job, David.